I'm about to attempt a challenge that has never been done on F1 24, trying to set a sub 1 minute lap time. In F1 23, I could only manage this around Canada where I just broke the 1 minute mark. However, I'm going to be trying to complete this challenge around Monaco, and I'll give you a little idea of what my laps end up looking like. Yeah, this video gets insanely fast. Right, so for my first lap, we're going to go through it quickly because as it is with all of my videos, I was just learning what lines would be best to take. And that was especially true of this track because if you've ever driven around Monaco on a controller, you know how difficult this circuit is. So for this first lap, I was aiming to be within 8 seconds of the world record, which may seem like a lot, but considering how different this game's handling is to last year, and this was my first time driving around Monaco on this game, I was going to be losing so much time through the corners that I actually had to take legitimately. So as you're watching now, this first lap had been pretty average, but I hadn't yet discovered a couple of things that, as you're going to see later in this video, would gain me so much time. So the swimming pool section was up next, and for some reason I was just so under the limit through there. I mean, I should not be braking that much, and after this was Raskas, where for some reason again I hit the barrier, leaving the second part, which wasn't ideal. This meant that momentarily I lost time to the default ghost, which is embarrassing, and through the final corner I actually had a decent run. In the end, I set a lap time that was just under 1 minute and 8 seconds, which was great because I knew that I could find so much time on this lap very quickly. And then a few laps later I made my first bit of progress. Through turn 1 I didn't get bogged down this time by smashing into the wall, and by the top of Beau Rivage I was 6/10 up. This time though, going through Massenet I didn't decide to run along the walls, which initially lost me all the time that I had gained. However, as you're about to see leaving Casino, because I got so much of a better exit, I gained a full second, and this was huge. Luckily for me, I maintained this through Mirabeau and then also through the hairpin, which as I'm sure you know is the slowest corner in the entirety of Formula 1. To be honest, nothing really changed in terms of my delta by the end of this first part of the racetrack, which I wasn't complaining about as I knew that there was so much more time to find. Now it's time for Tabac, and I made a massive mistake through here on my first lap, but this time I took it pretty perfectly. Because of this, I was gaining time pretty much everywhere all the way up to Raskas, which was amazing, and coming into what was the hardest part of the track for me, I was 2.5 seconds up. So I gained around 2 tenths on the exit of Raskas, but sadly this time through Anthony Nose, I didn't have as clean of a run, which cost me around 3 tenths. However, I couldn't complain as I made a gigantic 2.4 second gain, and I was now under 5.5 seconds away from the overall goal. And 2 laps later, I was making even more progress. So coming into Mirabeau, I decided to try something different this time by abusing the barriers, and this gained me 3 tenths straight away. So next up was the hairpin, and I must have done something a hell of a lot better this time as I was now 6 tenths up. And then going through turn 7, I wall rided this time, which kept up my momentum. After this, I had a very clean run through turn 8, which was brilliant as I had now made 8 tenths worth of progress coming into the tunnel. After this, going through Tabac, I sadly could not have as good of a run this time, which as we all know meant that I would lose time all the way up to Raskas, and I had basically halved the progress that I had made. However, I was still positive to the delta, and I wasn't going to give up just yet. Going through Raskas, I had such a decent run, which instantly brought me to 7.5 tenths up. Next up was the final corner, and through here I sorted out my previous poor run, and I finished this lap with a full second worth of progress, and I was now under 4.5 seconds away from a sub 1 minute lap time. After this I made a small improvement, but it was progress nonetheless, and the best part about this lap for me was that I had an absolutely awful run through the final corner, and I still found around 1/10 of a second. And because of this poor lap, I knew that I was on the verge of an absolutely massive jump in progress. So you may have noticed that on the last lap I lost the delta feature, which wasn't ideal, so what we're going to do from now on is compare sector times pretty much just like qualifying in real life. Over the past couple of improvements, I'd been learning to take better lines through the corners, and through turn 1 I'd learned to just fully send it into the exit wall to try and carry as much minimum speed as possible. And as we speed up to the end of sector 1, compared to my previous personal best, I'd gained 4.5 tenths, which at this stage in the challenge was a huge bit of progress. So we'll quickly skip through to the end of the lap here, and in the end I made over 6 tenths worth of progress, and for the first time in this challenge I was under 4 seconds away from a sub 1 minute lap time. And after this I made 2 very quick bits of progress which were massive, and at this point in the challenge I felt like I was just in a brilliant rhythm. I was getting continually closer to the overall goal, however I was still 2 seconds away from what I really needed. Now it's time for arguably one of my best laps of this entire challenge. Through turn 1 you want to smash off the entry wall into the exit wall and try and maintain maximum minimum speed, which is exactly what I did. Now we're on the run up the hill, and at this point I knew that this could potentially be an exceptional lap. Going through Massenet, wall riding isn't ideal, so once again you want to smash into the wall and try and get over to the left hand side of the track to get a good exit out of Casino. And that's exactly what I did. However, guess what? At this point in the challenge, I was somehow 2 tenths down. Through Mirabeau, I absolutely flew into the wall, and I somehow managed to get brilliant rotation. Next up was the hairpin, and I took this absolutely perfectly, but to be fair, turns 6, 7 and 8 aren't really that difficult. Tabak was up next, however that's an easy corner, and the crucial end of Sector 2 split was here. And look at this, I was a massive 0.4 seconds up, and I knew that this could be the lap to get me under 2 seconds away from the sub 1 minute lap time. Only the final corner was left after this, and honestly I'm so frustrated by the fact that I hit the barrier on the exit, because that's not what you should do, and this likely cost me a couple attempts. Anyway, we're coming up to the line here, and I was just over 1.5 seconds away from the goal on this lap. However, I knew that this lap would be so difficult to beat. And to be honest, I was pretty much spot on about this. I must have spent about 2.5 hours being so close to improving, but I could never make any actual progress. At this point, I was just so frustrated, and I went back and looked at my previous attempt at this on F123, go back and watch that after this by the way, and to complete that challenge I used a maxed out My Team car. So guess what I did? I spent a solid 4 hours of my life upgrading a My Team car to the maximum level, which was genuinely mind-numbing. However, I did know that this could be the difference between me having a video or not, and I was now so motivated to try and complete this challenge. So my first lap obviously wasn't going to be anything special, but I was under 3.5 seconds away from the world record, and I also set this lap on medium tyres, so I was very happy with this start. Now we're on to the serious improvements. On my second attempt on the medium tyre, we're coming into Massenet just under a 10th up. Next up was Casino, and luckily for me, I absolutely nailed it, and I finished this first sector with 6 tenths worth of progress, but I was not done yet. Through Mirbeau, I took the turn in perfectly, which brought me over to a second up, and I maintained this going through Casino Corner. After this, I improved by around 2 tenths through turn 7, and then through 48, I got brilliant traction all the way up to the entry to the tunnel, where I entered it 1.65 seconds up. So I thought I'd take you through the rest of this lap, and as you can see, it was good, but it wasn't perfect. For example, we'll stop this lap here because there is no reason for me to smash into the barrier, and this likely cost me a couple of tenths. Next up was Raskas, and I had a pretty average run where I didn't lose any time, but so annoyingly through the final corner I missed the apex by a mile, and then I had a huge snap which definitely cost me loads of time. But to be honest, I wasn't massively disappointed, as this lap was only 1.75 seconds away from the goal, which for a second lap with this car and all the mistakes I made was brilliant news. Now it was time for the soft tyres, and as we jump over the Nouvelle chicane here, I was just over a tenth down. Next up was Tabak, where I brought the delta back to equal, and through the swimming pool section I didn't hit the barriers this time, which gained me 2 tenths. However, I stupidly ran along the barriers before Raskas, which lost me all of my progress. And then I made another mistake on the exit of Raskas, where I tapped the wall, and I was now 3.5 tenths down coming into the final corner. However, I had such a good exit out of the final corner, which gave me 5 tenths worth of progress, and in the end a 2 tenth gain on this lap. Incidentally, this lap was the exact same time as my best lap on a normal car, and I was so buzzing at this point. It's now time for my final improvement of this first practice session. Leaving Tabak, I was 1.5 tenths up, and after not running along the wall for as long this time on the run up to Raskas, I gained 4 tenths from this, and this was huge. And then leaving Raskas, I sorted out my exit, which brought me to over 7 tenths up, which fortunately for me, I maintained on the run up to the line. This ended up being my first lap that was under a second away from a sub 1 minute lap time, and I knew that in the next practice session, I was going to make even more progress. And that's exactly what I did, because I made one improvement in the second practice session, and this was worth 1.5 tenths. So after this, I decided that it was now time to utilise the extra grip that you gain from qualifying sessions, and this was literally my first lap, and it was absolutely rapid. Turn 1 went really well, and I carried high minimum speed, which is all you actually need to do. Next up was Massenet, and I bounced off the wall brilliantly. And then at Casino, I barely broke, but I got brilliant rotation leaving the corner, and I knew that this was going to be a really quick first sector. This first sector ended up being just over 2 tenths faster compared to my previous personal best. And considering I only needed 6 tenths to complete this challenge, this was a third of the progress that I required. After this, turns 6, 7 and 8 went pretty well, but they are very easy corners, and going through the tunnel here, I knew that this could be a seriously good lap, and this could be the lap that breaks the 1 minute mark. Next up was Tabak, which is an easy corner. However, here is the sector 2 split, and I was 6.5 tenths up, which was enough to break the world record. This was it. Now it was time for Raskas, and I think that I took it pretty well, but I knew that I had to nail the final corner. I actually missed the apex, but only just. However, I still had a good exit, and now it was the run up to the line, and I'll just let this play out. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. This is the second video in a row where I've set a lap time that's been under 5 thousandths of a second away from the goal of the video, and genuinely I was shocked. This was because it was my first lap with qualifying grip, and although I knew that this would be difficult to beat, I knew there was time to find. However, as I just said, this wouldn't be easy, and I set so many lap times close to the goal, but I was just 1 step away. At this point, I knew that if I was going to break the 1 minute mark, it was going to have to be the fastest lap that I was ever going to set on an F1 game. That was perfect. In the end, I smashed the 1 minute mark by over 0.6 of a second, and honestly, I'm so happy with this lap. Thank you all so much for watching, and please subscribe because I'm unbelievably close to 10,000 subscribers, and trust me, you don't want to miss the 500 lap video that's going to be released very soon.